Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. I'm Mike Mitchell. I'm the Vice Chair, and our Chair, Brian Watt, has an excused absence this evening. So we'll start on the right with our introductions.
My name is Lynn Betteridge, and I represent the Pioneer Community Center.
My name is Don Smith, and I'm a resident in Oregon City.
My name is Patrick Sweeney, resident Oregon City.
Marty Birch, resident Oregon City.
Sky staff.
Great. Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. If everybody's had a chance to look at the June 23rd minutes, are there any additions or corrections? I'm not seeing any. Motion to approve?
I so move.
Yes. Me too.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. So we'll move on to item number 3, which is citizen comments. And we do have a citizen here who wants to speak to us tonight. This is Nathan Maudlin. And Nathan is going to speak to us about a potential Eagle project, as I understand it. So, Nathan, welcome.
Hello, my name is Nathan Maudlin. This last week I presented to the City Commissioners meeting a proposal for my Eagle project. I was invited by Community Service Director Scott Archer to present it again to you tonight. I'm a local Oregon City resident and a Life Scout of Troop 258. I'm a member of the Oregon City swim team, live in the McLaughlin neighborhood, attend Alliance Charter Academy at Park Place, and attend a local church. I love Oregon City because it is a city rich in history and has a strong community. I like the diversity of people and activities and the balance of urban and rural living. As I became a Life Scout recently, I realized that the next step is Eagle. Becoming an Eagle Scout takes dedication, perseverance, and guidance. I've known that a requirement for becoming an Eagle Scout is to lead a service project. About 6 months ago, I began to brainstorm ideas as to what project I want to do. I want to do something big and long-lasting. I want to give back to someone or somewhere that inspired me to reach the level I am at so far. As I said before, becoming an Eagle Scout takes guidance. Though they may not have realized it, a few specific city leaders have inspired me along the way. Commissioner Kathy Roth led a Financial Peace University class that I participated in, and because of it, I am now working on my personal management merit badge. These skills will help me plan and manage a budget for my Eagle project. The meeting of Commissioner Jim Nocita during his campaign was my first experience with voting and the local government and assisted me with my citizenship and the community merit badge. From Mayor Neely, I witnessed how our own neighbor can become involved in politics and become a leader in the community. It's great to see and recognize our own mayor at the park, walking on the streets, as at the grocery store, as well as in the city office buildings. This also is citizenship in my own community. Judge Steele helped my high school speech class and through my school to me by allowing us to attend a trial and participate in a mock trial. Through this, I gained knowledge of the court and achieved my public speaking merit badge. Without the support of these people and others in the community, I would not be here today ready to become an Eagle Scout. I want to thank them by giving back to my community. I am a dog owner and wish that we had a dog park like those in Portland and Lake Oswego. I am here today to propose a collaboration with Oregon City to build and design a dog park. Having talked with Commissioner Kathy Roth 2 weeks ago at the concert in the Carnegie Park, I learned that this is something Oregon City has been considering also. I believe that a dog park is a good asset to our urban community because it encourages neighbors to be responsible pet owners. Playgrounds are a difficult place for dogs and children to mingle. Dogs love to romp off leash, and dog parks allow this to take place safely for the dogs and the residents. I cannot buy my own land to put the dog park on. What I have to offer is manual labor, myself, my troop, as well as contacting local dog-related businesses and dog lovers to ask for sponsorship and donations. In helping to design and build this Eagle project, I will live the life of a Scout by remembering the Scout law. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Thank you for considering my proposal and considering a collaboration for building an Oregon City dog park.
Wow. Thank you. I'd like to say one thing before we talk about what Nathan had to say, just kind of on a more personal note. My wife was a high school speech and drama teacher for 30 years. And if every young person could speak like you do, she wouldn't have had a job. That was tremendous, and it's not easy to do.
Thank you.
Congratulations. What we're going to do is we're going to call an audible on the agenda. Point B on general business was going to be dog park, and we're just going to kind of stretch out and talk about that now. The biggest concern, and this is a question I know Scott has already brought up to you, we do want to do it. Money is an issue, planning is an issue, time. You know, what kind of time frame are you on that you have to be to completion on your project?
I would prefer to have this project started or completed in 12 to 15 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would we.
And we're going to talk about and perhaps review some of the, we've had some prior conversations about dedicated dog parks, different types of dog parks. Have you done some research on what dog parks are, what different communities have? And
A little bit. I've gone to a few dog parks, and taken a few pictures of them and stated the things that I like. So I'm working on writing up something.
okay. And so your goal would be for refresh my memory here, a dedicated dog park or a what are the two different styles again? Shared dog park and then dedicated dog park. You would like to see a dedicated dog park.
So
Okay.
Patrick, do you have, maybe you can give us a little report on the social media part of it and kind of where we've gotten to so far and where we think we're headed next?
So the social media part, about a month ago I set it up and sent it out. So hopefully everyone's jumped on, and so far it's connected with about 20 to 30 people. Scott, has that been linked with the city website at all yet, or were we going to talk about that more and how it looks?
We need to talk a little bit more about that. We had that issue where we wanted to make sure that it was clear that it was separate. On a city website. So yeah, we probably need to talk about that a little bit more. As far as, what we can do though is what we did talk about was definitely getting posted on our the front page of our website, and also sending out information blast to our neighborhood groups and so forth about anything coming up about that. For example, the meeting that we've got planned on August 15th, I think is the day right. So we might want to talk about kind of firming that up a little bit and making sure we're good to go on that. And so some things like that where we can definitely get the word out.
Yeah. It was surprising. It's only been up for several weeks, but I don't know how people are finding it. So I thought it was just kind of closed to us, but so far like 20 plus people have found and kind of latched onto it as what's the tag? You tag and say you want to be a member of. And friend it.
Yeah.
That is a verb.
Yeah,
Facebook.
This is Facebook, is the social media that we're talking about here.
Right.
And I was asked if I would suggest among my group of friends, and so everybody I knew who was passionate about dogs and might ever come to the Oregon City, but also, again, to spread the network, because I think as soon as a larger body of people are aware of it, then we build the enthusiasm and the support.
Right.
So some of those people were my friends and relatives.
Good, yeah. And I've seen that when you do some searches, general searches in the Facebook realm, it comes up. The dogs, Oregon City. If you type those in, it comes up in a listing. And so, you haven't stumbled into it yet, have you, Nathan?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah. Recommend you.
I did.
Great.
I mentioned it. I Googled for it and I found it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It's Friends of Oregon City Dog Park.
And so we want this to be a catalyst for a conversation to help spur interest conversations with these groups from your troops to helping and promote those contacts to get those people and funding, and we really think it's a great seed to plant for this. And then I want feedback from the rest of the crew. I mean, we just started it, so any comments or things that we can add to that working page, please feel free. I'll make all you guys administrators and just jump in and consider it open source text to just change it and melt it into whatever we want to make it into.
And if there are people that aren't into doing Facebook, I also set up an email address of ocdogpark@hotmail.com just to try to accumulate emails or contact information or whatever from people who don't do the Facebook thing. Right. If we can, Scott, let's talk about that August 15th meeting a little bit. I think 7 o'clock works, but we had talked about a location. Do you have any more thoughts on that? Because what I'd like to do is, maybe even tomorrow, get a little press release thing out to the Oregon City paper and the South Metro Oregonian thing to get them to put a little blast in their community news about it, but we need a location.
I think we've got it. Give me about 30 seconds. I think I can double check it. I think I scheduled it in this room right here, tentative, after we had talked about it a little while back, and I'll verify that. The other option was that we could look into the Pioneer Center, community center across the way, but I think this room would probably work fine for this purpose, unless you have a different idea. But let me verify that I've got it scheduled in here. I think I do.
Is there any, does one make it seem more like it is a city deal if we're in here? Are you concerned about that? Or they're both city facilities, I suppose.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, it's more of a preference of whatever you all would like to do is fine with me.
First, what are we talking about? A meeting for?
Yeah, let's back that up for the rest of the.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I think I'm like them. What meeting is that? So
And maybe we should clarify like this separation of why we're not formally doing this through the city. What we're trying to do as a group here, we're trying to help promote outside groups to want to do what you're doing and set something up. So we want to help spur that, right? And
Yeah, like as you said in your presentation, talking about donations and people to help work and whatever. With city funding the way it is, that's the only way this is going to happen, is if we can generate, that in-kind work or financial contributions or whatever. So the point of that meeting on the 15th is, up until the Facebook thing, we've only talked about the idea of a dog park within this group, and now we want to get the word out there that, hey, there's a group of people, we think it's needed, we think people in the community want it. Now we need a core group of people to kind of step up and help make it happen. And that's what we're trying to do with that meeting on the 15th. Just roll out to people that we think we need it, we want to make sure we need it, we need all of your help, that kind of. So that's a partnership between the city and businesses and interested individuals. Obviously, when we've talked about a few sites, only to the point of knowing that there are some possibilities, just to make sure. It didn't make any sense to go forward if we didn't think we had any possibilities for land, but we think there are. So now we need to, try to roll it out and try to get a groundswell of support. So that's really the purpose of that meeting on the 15th.
Does it matter if you guys have to buy the land? Or you have the land?
We feel like there are possibilities within existing parks, and there might be some that are not necessarily parks, but might be public owned by one entity or another. That might be a possibility. It's kind of a bunch of different possibilities.
Ideally, if we found, if we identified the site as being in a property that the city already owns, and more preferably in a park property, then we're a big step, kind of where we would be. Otherwise, just going from scratch and finding the property is one more pretty another time issue where if we put it in a site that we've already got, then it will be a big step ahead. We haven't identified a site, like Mike said. We've looked at some potential sites, and we're just, we're at a pretty low level of the discussion right now. We're continuing to work on that.
And
Real quick, by the way, Walt, before I forget to go back to it, I did double check, and this room is scheduled on the 15th at 7 o'clock for that meeting, unless you want to move it.
I like it here.
Nope. I think that's good.
I like it here.
So August 15th, 7 o'clock here, and I'll put something out to those two papers tomorrow. How are your graphics skills?
Mine?
Yeah, I was looking at you. Marty's turning his head trying to hide.
I don't have no time.
They're okay. They're okay.
Like to do a little flyer that we could put up at
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. I've got a little bit of time. Absolutely. I can do that. But we'll talk.
I just want to kind of expound a little bit on what you guys are talking about, trying to separate it somewhat from the city, but also I don't want it to sound like the city isn't being supportive. I think it's a partnership. But the idea was if we could form a Friends of the Dog Park type of group, whatever it would end up being named, that could operate eventually as a private type of a group, like a nonprofit entity, if we could get to that level eventually, and be a partner with the city and vice versa, then I think we're gonna have a lot more ability to be successful. That was kind of the point of that. And then the thing like the Facebook page, if we separate it from the city and say this is not an official city website, then you're not restricted by our fairly restrictive internet, and we have these media policies that are, you can work inside this box of what you can do and how it's got to be approved. If it's a separate group, and if it's operated by an individual, not the city, you can be a lot more flexible on how you can make announcements, and it just gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility. So I think we've got a little header on there. You put that on there.
I did mention
this is not a City of Oregon City Facebook site.
Right.
The city has its own Facebook site.
I saw that.
Actually, could probably link up to that to get the word out to people, but we want to keep that distinction so that you can be more flexible in what you can do and say. Not that we're going to do anything appropriate, but just that it's not as restrictive. Our policies are fairly restrictive.
Yeah, can we make that link? Because I saw there were some other links in that Oregon City Facebook to other small groups, but that'd be awesome if we can make that connection.
We'll look into that all. We'll talk to our experts in that area.
And to clarify the conversation about current existing parks that we've had prior with, I think everyone in our group was agreed to for this to be a dedicated dog park. There was the conversations about both, the advantages and disadvantages, and we did a little research with other communities and what's worked well. And we see a real need for dedicated dog park, but set up within a current piece of property that's owned by the city already, because it would expedite things and be more realistic.
I think all of our parks are shared parks with dogs.
Yeah, they're all currently shared anyway, but it's just kind of under the table, just live, let live, and everyone's just going to get along. But we see the dedicated being a good channel.
Yes.
The process that it is.
Yeah, come on up.
The process that Nathan has to go from here is to present to the parent committee at the Scout group. He has to present to his treatment officer, and then he has to submit this to the council. So he has to have his proposal. And so just, whether you guys are willing to have a collaboration or not, so it doesn't have to be detailed, but the next meeting that they have is the third week of August. So if there's some stuff just to say that, hey, this is something I want to work on, the city is kind of willing to work with me, or the city is not, let me move on and find another project. It doesn't have to be detailed exactly what he's doing at this point. He needs to be that process there, just that the treatment has to meet with him. And then the parents group has to meet. And council has to do it. And just that whole process just takes a while. I know that you guys can't make decisions, but there's many parts of this, and we've been talking back and forth. Maybe he's helping to do the fundraising and create the big sign that gets started. Maybe he doesn't have the legal property to do the entire building of the entire park. Maybe it's providing certain parts to it. Maybe it's
just slide up so the microphone picks it up. We do the recording meeting.
Okay.
Next.
Okay. Now I'll get really nervous. And
Both people that are watching.
Yeah, well, I'm just pretending that. So, for Nathan to be able to present to the committee would be what be a wonderful next step for him. What that actual project, it would have to be fleshed out with you, fleshed out with those 3 different committees, and to make some more progress. Things right now that he could work on is maybe taking that flyer, and it's his job to go around to all the different vets around the neighborhood and some of the places that sell dog food and post those up and ask people to hand those out to come to this August 15th meeting. Those kind of things he could be doing. He could be meeting at the community concert in the park and hand out stuff to people that are there with their dogs. There's many things right now, and those are good things to put into some kind of Eagle project. So many things in the next 12 to 15 months.
That's kind of what I was thinking. That really maybe the project is helping us to develop the plan. Yeah. That's really the most of the work. And what we've kind of talked about here is creating public awareness, which I know you'd be really good at. You may even find a commercial donor the way you present yourself. You might even find somebody to pay for the dog park the way you're going.
Yeah.
But I think that you could identify the plan and the planning process as a project all on its own before we even break ground. That's actually where all the work is. And I think in 12 to 15 months, there could be some traction that you could report on, that you were part of a...
Okay. And I'd be willing to help after, even if I complete the requirements, I'd be willing to help get it rolling or something besides just the awareness. So...
I totally agree with Don's comments. I think if you were willing to look at it as that type of project there, and it's probably kind of a good learning experience too, that a lot of projects, city types of projects or publicly done projects, the 75 to 80% of the work is before you even scratch the surface of the dirt and start working on something. It's the planning, like we're doing right now, it's the discussions early on of even what to do, and then fundraising, and then getting to the point of having a plan and maybe drawing up plans with an architect or however we're going to do this. That is the majority of the work, and that is a substantial part of this. And you could be involved potentially with, there's kind of a subcommittee of this group that are focused on the dog park. You could be a member of that subcommittee when they meet every once in a while. The legwork about going out, you just said that actually, sorry, going out and helping those folks to spread the word, helping us spread the word, and going to concerts for other events. We had talked about identifying specific places in town that would be great avenues for us to post flyers and things, and the vets and the animals and pet stores and places like Logo and Social Farm where all buy pet supplies. So I think this is a great way to, but you have to be willing to understand that maybe with the time frame of your scout project, you're probably not looking at a complete project. You're probably looking at maybe substantially being completed with the planning project. If you were willing to do that, something you could consider, or if you didn't want to do this, we have other types of projects. We work with lots of Eagle Scout projects on building and actually constructing. This is a really unique opportunity.
And the timing is just it's awesome, because this has been at the heart of many of our conversations here, knowing that we need one in the community, and so your timing is fantastic. So
I just happen to have a list here of a bunch of pet-related businesses, Wilco and such, and the vets and the groomers and stuff that I pulled offline. I don't know. Do we need some sort of motion, or do we just understand we think it's a great idea for Nathan to be involved? Do we need? Okay.
Well, you're all in agreement about it. Just kind of work.
I would like to hear Nathan restate all of the things that we just said, because is hard for even those who weren't at every meeting to know what we're really talking about. It would be interesting to hear your idea of our situation and where we're at right now. What do you think you understand?
I think I understand that the process is not completely finished, that it's still kind of up in the air of a location, of a time. And I think that what it sounds like is that you are all willing to do this and would like my support, but it's still not something that you can all sign papers on or something that it's going to be completed at a specific deadline.
I would add to that we are simultaneously trying to create awareness among the city, along with the community, that this opportunity exists in its shadow framework that it's in right now, and that a big part of this is making the public aware of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Creating the demand, more or less.
Would it be okay with the committee, maybe whoever we'd have to report to make a flyer for that August 15th and then present it? If it's approved by whoever would approve it, Nathan could go. Yeah. Nathan could then take it to all the businesses and run off 100 copies and go around, start getting the interest in it.
Absolutely.
Pioneer Center, 7 p.m. You said August 15th.
Right.
Right here.
Right here in this building.
Yeah. And what is this room called?
It's the Commission Chambers at City.
So you're going to put together a flyer?
Sure.
Can you do that?
Or Nathan might be interested in doing it, or working
you a graphics
on
guy?
A flyer too.
I could do something for that.
A little desktop publishing doesn't have to be too complex.
Isn't there a badge on there somewhere?
One
for
color.
There probably is a publishing badge.
I can also add that we can provide the photocopy stuff here.
So Nathan, our subcommittee would love to get your contact so we can call, or we'll give you our number. And you can call
the
us.
Subcommittee is the two of us.
We're the subcommittee
at this point.
And also with that, not to bring up all the stuff here because we've had these prior meetings and brought a lot of this information up, but I'm willing to share all the stuff that I've done, research that we've done together from other communities that have put together these dog parks in groups and what they have done. I don't know how much research you've done with other communities and what they've done, but there's some great resources that I have that I'd love to share with you to help jumpstart your tackling this too. Okay.
One thing I'd like to request is, can you put together like an agenda, what it is that you need to do to be able to be successful in this and get the badge that you need? And let these guys have it, and also Scott, so that we can. Because one of the things I don't want to do is I don't want you to get partway through and find out that we're missing a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of things that we can help you with. I think we were all, I was at one time a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
All of that,
Marty says that he puts it together. What are some? Just figure out small goals that we can sign off for. We would gladly do that for you because it's all about the process and we don't want to. We want to make sure that that in all your good work, you're getting attention for that process. And just coming here, this is tremendous.
Well, I don't know, work 12 months to find out that he's missing half of it or something.
I just add that I can. We exchanged information at the commission meeting last week. I gave Nathan my card. He still have that. And I think I got your information. We'll make sure we get that from you tonight. I can be a conduit. I've got everybody's contact info, unless you guys specifically want to give me your stuff or whatever. But I think I can make sure we connect all the dots, and then also you can work through me for if you need signatures on things along the way. That's what it's if you need it. But I can be your. These folks are all volunteers, and I'm the staff person, and my job to do, so I can help them help you. Is what I'm saying. So you can use me as that point of contact and make sure that you get in touch with it.
Just one more quick thing, and then we should probably move on. I just would like to ask you to take a night and think about if this is still what you want to do, because I think you probably had a vision that you would end up with something, brick and mortar at the end, and the chances are it probably won't happen. And I would hate for you, with the enthusiasm that you've got, to end up disappointed in what you did in such an important event in your life because you weren't able to get it all the way to the finish line and get it done. And it's not going to be your fault that it doesn't happen. It's just how things have to move, in a public kind of a thing. So I think you ought to think about it. We'd love to have you take this on. We think it's a great idea, and you're a tremendous young man. But I just want to make sure that it's still the right project for you, because it's probably a little different than what was in your mind when you came in tonight. So
just to clarify, so when we go home and talk about this, that if Nathan, he wants to become an engineer, so this is just down his alley, engineers this in many different aspects, and part of it is, the budgeting of it, it's the planning of it, it's making the contacts, all that. He creates that whole portfolio of it. And maybe at the end, when he gets it signed off, all that is in the ground is the sign to the entrance of the park. 2 months later, after he's met with his Eagle people, you guys actually put in the post to make the fence. That's what you're saying, that it may not be finished? Or are you saying that you may just pull the plug in 12 months and say, we've decided not to do a dog park, we're going to go build a rollerblading park?
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think we can answer that, because we don't have a lot of the say-so on if the funds ever come up, or, we've done things. I mean, we've got stages out there that we need to upgrade parks with, and with the economy, it's kind of stopped right now. So we don't at any time want to stop anything. Sometimes it's just politics, it just happens.
Yeah, that's a very true statement. What I can say, though, is you've got a very motivated, for the first time, at least since I've been the parks director in the city here for 7 years, and dog park discussions have kind of happened a little bit here and there. This is the most motivated and the most organized effort that I've seen so far, where I think it's got a pretty good chance of going forward. Marty's absolutely right. There's no guarantee. That's also kind of a life lesson. I know a lot of what you do in scouting is about learning, different lessons about life and so forth. Is if you want to make something happen, it's going to take people with enthusiasm and drive and energy and dedication to a project. So you could actually be a part of answering that very question that you just asked. To get this to go, it's going to take some pushing and partnering with the city and seeing whether we're going to be able to provide part or some or much of the funding or whatever the case may be. Certainly the political support of our city commission to support us putting this in a city park site, for example, finding some private support out in the community, whatever. I mean, it's going to take the efforts of this Parks and Rec committee, the other folks that will hopefully show up on the 15th of August and more, and people like yourself. So, looking back at this potentially down the road, you could say, I was a part of the project being successful because I helped get it to the point of approval, of being just approved and moving forward. And that's a big part of this. But there aren't any, you're right, that's a really good point. There aren't any guarantees. So there's a little bit of a risk there for you to say it may or may not be successful as far as what you might be finding successful for the project as you're looking at it. But I see a pretty good chance of this going forward. Somehow it's just a matter of kind of when it goes forward and how, what we're trying to figure out.
The project is the sign that says future park, home park of the Oregon City.
Yeah.
That very well could be the most tangible thing that you have, or even some plans or some documents that say, for example, some approval actions and some actual paperwork, that maybe a resolution where the city commission adopts the support of this eventually. It says we support this being built at X site, and when it's funded, we'll support it going there, or some different things like that. That might be what you have as a tangible finished project in the near future, and then a little bit further down the road, if you want to stick around and help them all the way through it, if you were still interested.
One thing I will add is that I've been on it a couple of terms now, and when we get people on the committee that are dedicated to something, it usually comes through. I mean, the last few projects we had with the pool and stuff like that were because we had people on the committee that actually were passionate about it and they really fight for it. So we got a couple of guys here that are really fighting for it. So I see it happening, but I just can't.
This group is very influential with the city commission as far as getting them to
And that's kind of what I was thinking, in terms of trying to make this tangible so you have a project, is if you look at it in like you worked on somebody's election campaign, and you worked as hard as you could to get the awareness up, even worked with them on financing the campaign and getting the wheels on the bus and all that. They just didn't get elected.
Right.
But it still was a really good thing to put on your resume that you worked on that campaign. And that's kind of what I was thinking, and how we can make this a project, even though the dirt may never get turned. There's a lot of work to do, and I think you could learn a lot from it.
Just define those steps in those smaller, break those goals down into smaller avenues, and then we'll gladly sign off or help you in approving those to get to there. I think you guys are understanding. It shouldn't be just a one shot. If the park doesn't go in, everything is lost. But just getting it all going.
So would it be possible for the two of you or whoever else is on to write something up or talk to me about what your specific ideas of what you would like me to be able to be a part in this, so that I can...
Yeah, more defined. Yes, we can definitely find some smaller things or focused things for you to begin right away with, and then also get your feedback. I mean, like we've been saying, this is all new to us too, and so you may have some ideas that we could use too.
Okay, just something that I can start working on.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We can start tomorrow.
With the flyer.
Okay.
Well, you're welcome to stay if you'd like, or and watch Democracy in Action, or you can go out and enjoy the sun. So it's up to you. But thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll jump back to point A, Ermatinger House.
Thank you. Nathan, how old are you again? 14. Do you have Facebook?
We haven't done it yet.
You haven't done it yet?
He's got it.
I think legal age is 13 and up. But check it out. We've got a Facebook page. You might be able to access.
You can go through me to do it.
There you go.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Then it's just a little bit for visual. I'm gonna just walk through a PowerPoint with you on the presentation table. But on your screens, if you remember, there's a little toggle switch on the bottom left that says, I think it says monitor presentation. If you switch that button to the left, that little toggle switch to presentation, it'll the PowerPoint will come up on your screen.
Cool.
Does that work like good?
I don't know, but I'm not going to push it. I'm guessing it's the pan.
Did that switch over okay on your
Yeah.
screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just wondering what the button under the counter is.
Oh, don't push that one.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
I'll go over that with you sometime.
I thought it was probably a panic button.
It is. I should probably go through that with you. Actually, it's right after this meeting. Let's have like 1 minute to talk about that. Yeah, don't push that right now, though.
Oh, it's clear. It's like you're getting it.
Push it and then listen for the sirens?
Yeah, that's what will happen.
That's kind of what I thought.
So this is what I wanted to do is give you. I want to walk through this PowerPoint presentation that we've actually been using as a kind of a sales tool for the Ermatinger House. I've been giving you pretty steady updates about what's going on. You guys all know with the structure, the issues that we've been having, and so forth. And kind of our next big push right now is that the Ermatinger House is in a state of basically closed to the public and not being used. And we've estimated that we need probably in the neighborhood of about $750,000 to really preserve it and do it right. There is a strong level of support from our city commission for us to do this. So it's a priority that the commission has passed down to the city manager, who's passed that down to staff, which is where I come in. One of the kind of big pushes now that we're doing is going out and seeking partners on this. So it's not just about Oregon City. It's a house that is significant. And some of this will come up in the presentation. I'm going to go through the presentation fairly quickly, but the house is more than just Oregon City. It's important to the county, to the citizens of the state of Oregon, and to probably the citizens of the nation, because this was pretty significant in the western, the whole Pacific Northwest and the Oregon Trail and all that good stuff. And some of that's going to be in the presentation here. But what I just wanted to do was, this is something that we've kind of taken out into some different places. For example, our mayor and one of our city commissioners, Commissioner Rocky Smith, and our city manager actually met with the mayor in Portland and several of his staff and made this pitch about, because the house was named, the city of Portland was named in the Ermatinger House. So would the city of Portland be interested in supporting that? And surprisingly, they got a lot of positive feedback from the mayor's office, and we're continuing to work through that. But we're going to take this out to our elected delegation at the federal level, the two senators and our congressman. We're going to be presenting this to the county and numbers of other kind of potential partners. So since that's been going on, and you're obviously, as the Parks Advisory Committee, I thought it was important that you see what's kind of been taking place. So I've been telling you a lot, but this has been developed just fairly recently. So I just wanted to kind of give you the quick run-through of this PowerPoint presentation of what's been out there, and it actually might give you a little bit more information than you've even had about the house. So that's an historic photo of the house. And then the house today, and that photo of today was taken, the house today, not actually today, but today is in recently, when we still had the plywood up. We've switched the plywood to plexiglass, which is still temporary. And those aren't the permanent windows that are in there right now, but it's a little bit more
it's better than the plywood.
Yeah. The house was named after Francis Ermatinger. He was significant in the early history of Oregon City and Oregon, worked for the Hudson's Bay Company, was actually married the granddaughter of Dr. McLaughlin, and this house has a pretty significant tie to the McLaughlin house, so there's a lot of connection there. That we, as far as what our records tell us, the house was completed and opened in 1845. There's some information that we're discovering that it might be just a little bit older than that even, but that's kind of the official record. The naming of Portland was decided by the toss of a coin. These two gentlemen from their original hometowns on the East Coast had a coin toss in the parlor. Francis Pettygrove won that toss. It was that occurred in the parlor of the house, and had the coin flipped the other way, we'd be talking about Boston, Oregon instead of Portland, Oregon. Prior to that, I think it was called Stumptown. This is the original site of the house, down on basically roughly where about 5th and the mill is at, kind of right on the waterfront. As you can see from these photos, and as you know, we have these pretty significant flooding events every so often, and I think after a few of those flooding events, whoever owned the house decided, well, this isn't a very good place for it. Let's move it a little ways up the hill. So it moved from its original location in 1910. It moved up to its second of 3 locations, to kind of the mid level of the shelf here, and it stayed there until 1986. Some photos of it during the time when it was in its second location at 11th and Center. It existed as a privately owned residence. Probably a number of different people lived there, and you can kind of see you can see the house as it exists today in there, but it was kind of added onto and had some features, and obviously it wasn't. I think this was at the latter part of that time, and it wasn't in great condition. So in 1986, the house was moved for the second time to its third location, and that is to the location where it's at today. There's some photos there, some newspaper articles and so forth of showing the house being lifted and moved. These are just some kind of bullet points about it. The move in 1986 was perpetuated by the fact that that Ruth McBride Powers, who is a noted Oregon preservationist and was very involved in a number of preservation projects, actually was involved in moving it and securing it for historical purposes. She invested $100,000 of her own money to make certain that the house was preserved. And so there was a partnership with the city was developed at that time, and it was moved to a city-owned property. And the agreement was that if the city would allow her to do so, she'd pay for the preservation and the move to the site, but it had to be, the city had to commit to opening it as a public history museum. And that's what happened. And there's Mrs. Powers right there in the chamber under the picture of Dr. John McLaughlin. She, as I said, $100,000 of her own money. This was kind of her swan song in her later years of, I think it might have been one of her final restoration projects. And really it was just her passion that kind of made sure that the house was preserved. These are photos of the restoration work on its current site at that time. And after it was moved and then the restoration in 1987, it opened to the public as a museum, and it operated as a museum until we closed it at the end of last year. As I already said, it's got some unique architecture. It's a flat-roofed federal style, and they figured out pretty quickly that wasn't a very good type of roof to build in this climate. But in some of those pictures in the interim photos, there was a pitch on the roof, but when it was restored, it was put back to its original style. It's believed to be the only federal-style house with a flat roof. The birthplace of the naming of Portland, it was listed on the National Historic Register in 1977, and it's believed to be the third oldest house in the state of Oregon. Might be the second oldest, but we know for certain that it's at least the third oldest house. So it's very significant in our state. So kind of the where are we now? Obviously it's boarded up, closed to the public due to the urgent structural concerns that we had. The city, paid for a master plan back in 2002 that identified a number of the issues that have kind of come to fruition, only they've advanced at a much quicker rate than we'd expected. The city's been doing the best that we can to address some of these items. However, funding limitations and political reasons, it wasn't a priority for a number of years, have just had hindered the city's ability to completely deal with these issues. In late last year, as you all know, we've been talking about this frequently, we discovered this significant structural issues, and they advanced to such an immediate threat level that public safety was in danger, and the building had to be closed for those reasons. In May of 2011, I believe I had reported this to you, the house was added to the Historic Preservation League of Oregon's most endangered list, and it's on the top 10 most endangered facilities, historical facilities in the state's list, which gives it a lot of credibility for us being able to talk about, finding funding and finding grants and partnerships and so forth. Without further intervention, the house is so structurally compromised that eventually it'll probably just fall down, and so we need to deal with that. This is that Historic Preservation League of Oregon most endangered list. These are just some photos of the structural issues. We had it analyzed by a structural engineer. Foundation was a major problem. It's basically slid significantly. The foundation is cracked. This is kind of on a time thing where the slides are going to sort of time just through. We were in danger of, we did some immediate kind of emergency shoring of the building. The second floor was in danger of sliding all the way down and basically dropping. That's a measurement device that we had put on the foundation, and it was literally, the cracks were widening by the day as we were kind of watching that. Talked already about the cost estimates. We think it's in the neighborhood of $700,000 roughly. Talked about our political support. Our city commission has committed for the current budget year $125,000 towards the preservation of the house. We're seeking those additional partnerships, both financially and just political support and that type of thing. Again, that's kind of what it looks like today, and it is closed to the public. So the question is kind of how do we save the house? And going forward, what we're already doing somewhat and what we're going to continue to do. We are working on forming a consortium of partners. This could include, but is not limited to, our own city, the city of Portland, Clackamas County, the National Park Service, which our ultimate end goal would be, we're hoping that the Park Service that the house would be restored to a condition that the Park Service would be willing to take that as an extension of the McLaughlin House unit. That's, if you weren't aware, the National Park Service runs the McLaughlin House, and it's sort of out of the Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. We talked about some of these items already. One of the first frame-built homes in the Oregon Territory, and we believe it's the third oldest remaining house in Oregon. The crisis situation. One of the things that we're talking about with these partners is that this is important not just to Oregon City, but Oregon City has been solely responsible to operate this house since 1986, and we are just not in a position to continue to do that. We'd like to enlist some other help. And this is just not sustainable, so we need to find partners to help us preserve this. We need to find grants, and that's what we're out doing. That's the point of this presentation, why I wanted to show you this, is that we're out kind of doing this with different organizations and so forth. So that's just kind of it in a nutshell, where we're at, what we're doing, and what's going on.
So I'm having a hard time getting my hands around this $750,000. I mean, it looks like it's in pretty bad shape. And I own a house that's 110 years old, and they say the definition of a craftsman home is there's no way you could have spent that much money on that. So I'm really wondering how that broke out and how they came to that number.
Well, it's in our we have a preservation master plan report that was done by a firm that specializes in historical preservation, and a lot of that is, and Denise, feel free to chime in if you want to add anything here, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that it is it's not just your typical type of construction that we'd be doing when you do the preservation, and it has to be done to historical standards. It has to be done to the standards that we would the Park Service standards, would they be able to take it over? So it is very methodical and very much not just your typical type of construction. I have available the full report that would, if you would be interested in looking at that, it would be more than we'd want to go through tonight. But that would probably answer a lot of your questions as far as where all the big costs are and why it would be that expensive and that type of thing.
So I can see now. I mean, it's going to be a public building, so you have to have ADA. You probably have to have a lift in it.
Anytime you trigger over a percentage of the building cost, you trigger ADA renovations. So that would have to be included in it. You have your historic preservation. So historic preservation renovation. It's not your typical tear down, rebuild. So we have to abide by the Secretary of the Interior's procedures and process for preserving a historic National Register historic building. So you don't get to go in and you gotta kind of pick through what's there, what can be saved, and then you have to figure out how you can take out what needs to be replaced. And the replacement is done meticulously because it has to be of the same type, style, and construction method of the historic period. So, you know, we can't use today's 2x4s if there aren't any 2x4s in the building. So we have to find different products that
Handmade
meet those
stuff.
standards. A lot of it's handmade, and a lot of it is the craftsmanship. So you have to get craftsmen that will make it of that era. You can't use a commercial construction guy who doesn't know the techniques. And then there's just the technique of moving the house. You're going to have to lift it. We've got all different things we have to do to shore it and lift it and do the processes to get to these pieces. So it's a big project.
Another spendy item that we're going to be dealing with is what we've discovered through this recent issue is that we're probably sitting on some unstable soil. There used to be a different building on that site, and it had a basement, and it looks like they basically just put in a bunch of fill where that basement was. And we've been doing some initial soils testing, which looks like there's a lot of different types of fill in there. We haven't done a complete soils analysis, but we're probably going to have to put pilings down to solid earth through this fill stuff, which could be a few feet up to several feet, and so that's going to be. So we're going to put pilings to put the foundation to permanently stabilize the house, and that'll be a little bit more of a cost factor.
Singer Creek, how close is that underneath?
It's across the street.
It runs directly under the sidewalk on the Pioneer side.
On the Pioneer side.
Center. Yeah, so
Okay.
it goes right underneath, and that's in a block and mortar box culvert.
Yeah, my house is 10 feet away from it. But I didn't know how it went at an angle there, if it went underneath it. Because it does go under a few homes, Singer Creek does. So it's nationally, we have to follow the national guidelines. And doesn't that trigger then national support, national help?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, no.
Because you have to follow those guidelines?
No.
Well, not necessarily. We are going after a number of different granting opportunities. Some of those are actually some nationally historical stuff, but really what we're saying is we're building it to these national standards for preservation so that potentially if the Park Service would eventually agree to take that or through some legislation, that it would be to their standards and they'd be able to accept it is really the main point of that.
Ty Pennington coming by saying good morning, Mayor Neal.
Well, that would be great.
Is it, I can't think of the right word. I'm going to make up a word, maintainable the way it is right now, or are we looking at, hey, we got to do something in 12 months, 18 months, whatever, or it's going to fall? Is it frozen at its current spot?
We did the shoring where I think what we feel like is that it, for the time being, we feel like it's stable without doing anything else. That's without putting people in it and having activity going on. But that's not a permanent stabilization. I don't know the exact, if we want to say an exact timeline, but it's going to need to be further stabilized at some point in time.
I think that our biggest concern coming towards winter would be a massive snow event. We've been maintaining the scuppers so that we don't have a load on the roof. The roof structure is an issue and is definitely potentially going to cause us some concern. We did have the potential of a snow event this year, and we closed off everything around that house, just in preparedness. You just never know how. It shouldn't have lasted this long with the construction that we have seen, and with the two physical moves of the home. So it could fool us, and it could just have symptomatic issues, but not be catastrophic. Or, we could think that we have most of the symptomatic issues shored up, and we could have a catastrophic event that we haven't foreseen, like a small tornado or high wind factors or a snow event or a massive rain event where our scuppers can't process the load. We could have underwater. We had probably some of our highest water years, groundwater years, the last couple years. we've noticed that since we haven't had rain or significant amounts of rain, we're not seeing as many cracks in the foundation. So there's a lot of factors that we can't predict that would factor into whether we will have more symptomatic problems or catastrophic issues, and there's no timeline.
Eventually something's got to be done. It's just kind of uncertain. We're just sort of doing the best we can to maintain it for the time being, keep it as weatherproofed as we can, such as what we talked about with at least getting rid of the plywood and putting in the plexi windows. But we're kind of just trying to hold it steady while we get figured out what our plan is, and we're working aggressively on what the plan's going to be.
There's just no way then to shore up with a cheaper crew. I mean, and not lose its historic. I mean,
there's always the potential that you have these just extremely gifted craftsmen that are in this historic preservation industry that are interested in doing this, that are willing to donate their time. I've had actually a couple of those types of craftsmen offer their services for free when we get to that venue of that construction. So there's always the potential that somebody just loves this house that much and wants to throw in their services, and or donors that we can hire those types of services.
This dedicated plaque to the company that volunteers.
The thing that we don't want is people that don't know what they're doing in that realm of historic preservation come in, and we have some of that telltale construction in the house now, which has caused some issues. So we kind of want to stay away from the pitchy-patchy stuff that we've done in the past and do it the right way, and hopefully that would be the right way one time over.
Anything else on this? Okay.
We'll keep you posted as we keep moving forward on this.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Very nice.
Okay, so we'll move on to pocket parks. Brian is not here. I know this is a hot button of his. And Scott, I don't know where we need to go next. I'm pursuing the idea of disposing of some of those pocket parks.
You have been having the conversation in the last few meetings. I think I gave you a packet of information of when this was put out as a ballot measure in 2002. Did I provide you that last time or not? I was trying to remember if I gave you the paperwork or not. Well,
I have it. I don't know how I got
it.
it.
I might as well pass this around to you. Whether you did or didn't get it, it's duplicate. We can just recycle. So just to kind of review that a little bit, what I'm giving you here is just a number of different items that were from the time that this was done in 2002. It was on the ballot in 2002, and these are some of the legal memorandums from our attorney's office, the commission's resolution to put this on the ballot, the listing of the actual pocket park sites that were identified specifically, and some of that type of thing. And again, as this didn't, this failed at the ballot last time. The question to the voters of whether the city could sell or dispose of these parks didn't pass. This was I've got files that are half a foot thick of additional paperwork, but what I tried to do is just grab some of the stuff that was I thought most helpful, just to be able to understand what goes into the process in terms of some of the background work that we have to do and putting it in front of our commission to have them support it, to move it. So it takes the commission to authorize just to put it on the ballot, and got to be good justification for doing that and identifying the specific sites and how you write the language. So that's something that, again, I wasn't sure if I'd given you that or not last time. I had it in my booklet to give you again tonight. is where do we go from here? There seems to be support. That's something that you'll need to further deliberate about, is whether this is something that PRAC wants to continue to support and pursue. There are I think kind of the pluses and minuses of doing this. The reasons that we would want to pursue this are really for financial and management reasons. These are the pocket parks are low, what I would call low value and high maintenance for the bang for the buck that you get. And have to stop and mow and take care of, whether it's a half an acre or 4 acres, is almost about the same amount of time and effort and work, and the use is kind of minimal. In some cases, these are spaces that are really not even used. They're just open spaces in the city. So they're positive that way. The downside is it's always a little bit controversial to talk about getting rid of open space, and it may not be something popular. There's the process part of this where we have to go through everything to get it to the ballot. It's got to be pretty well organized, and you've got to really be dedicated to that cause to go through this. So that's kind of the challenging side of this. So I believe at the last meeting we had gotten to the point of talking about the sites that were identified last time this was on the ballot. And again, those are in this information that I just gave you. And I know that we've talked about, we could refer back to the minutes from the last few meetings where there's been discussed. I think some additional potential sites have come up. Also, just to remind you, the other thing that we've kind of put into this is if we identified sites that we would want to first go to the neighborhoods and ask them, would they, before we put this on a ballot, would you, as a neighborhood, want to take over the maintenance of this site? Otherwise, we would plan on disposing of it. Those kind of things to make sure that we first communicate that with the neighborhoods where these parks would specifically reside. So, that's really it for me. I think where we go from here is kind of up to you a little bit in terms of what you want to do with this, where you want to really go.
I have a couple questions. I'm finding out as I grow through this life that getting rid of something sometimes costs more than keeping it. And while we're on being recorded, I'm not going to go into that. My fingernails are dirty for a reason today. But there's a legal cost to even get it to the ballot. Then there's a cost to market the idea once it's on the ballot. And then there's, what is really the cost of that property? And is there going to be any cost just preparing it to be ready for sale? And what is the cost of maintaining that property if we keep it? And I just wonder if anyone's really done a cursory study recently to just thumbnail sketch where we're at. Net ahead, net behind, net even.
Really good points and really good question. We haven't gotten that far on it because we've not identified any specific. We haven't targeted any specific sites at this point. We're just kind of in the discussion phase, and I think when we get to that point, we'd want to say, here's the potential sites that we're looking at. What is our cost per year of maintaining that? We don't really track. Our maintenance operation isn't really tracked per exact site. We have ways that we can kind of do some estimating and figuring that out, but it will take a pretty good chunk of my time or our staff's time to do that. So before I just start doing a bunch of that type of analysis, I'd rather wait and see what are the specific sites that we're even talking about. Is it worth us doing that? Because are we even going to go forward? So we do have the capability of doing some of that type of estimating or analysis, but just frankly, I really don't want to jump into that until we're
So historic, how did this get to be how's this get on the list? I mean, why is it still on our list?
Well, Brian, we're here I'd say with Parks and Rec Committee over the last few years, it's been a topic that sort of just kind of resurfaces and we discuss it. And Marty, you've been around for a few years, so maybe you want to comment on this. We've kind of just brought it up every once in a while, like, you know, this was on the ballot, you know, it's something that's still out there as we continue to add more parkland and we continue to, you know, not really add more staff. It's something we want to reconsider. I think another thing that kind of triggered the discussion was the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update that we did in 2008. Had some alluded to that as a recommendation that we might want to reconsider doing this again. So that's triggered some of this discussion. And I think it just kind of bubbled its way up and has gotten to the point where it's become now on the kind of the list of goals for Pratt. I think there have been some specific advocates on it. Brian has also, I think, a good thought is thinking about this in terms of going forward at the same time that we're considering this parks maintenance utility fee, because they kind of go hand in hand. We're looking at doing some type of additional revenue source to add maintenance capability. Why don't we also look at, you know, if we're going to do that, let's look at being more efficient in how we do maintenance. And this might be one of those ways. So, like I said, maybe, I don't know, Marty, you've been...
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, but I'll just go on my personal. Is that, you know, I don't look at necessarily the short term, you know, how much is the maintenance cost over, you know, doing all this legal stuff to get rid of it. It is the maintenance cost and the liability of the city and the injuries that happen to the people because of the stuff that was put in 10 years, 15, 20 years ago becomes deteriorated. You got to rip it out or somebody gets hurt. They're just hard to maintain, you know. I mean, first the city don't have the staff for it. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, a lot of the, even some of the neighborhood residents and stuff like that, they've even been in trying to give us parks as part of their lands and stuff like that. I think a lot of us just, in the prior, was just the maintenance cost and keeping up on it. And, you know, Larry and them in the city just can't keep up. And, you know, you got to hire more people. You got maintenance stuff you have to add to it to maintain it, and half of them are never used. If they are used, 90% of them, the neighbors are calling the cops because it's some kids doing some stupid, foolish stuff in those little parks. You know, so I mean, that's my personal opinion. Why, you know,
one other thing that I think probably ramped up the discussion a little bit. We did a parks tour last summer for the committee. Of you weren't on the committee at that time. Actually, some of the other members that aren't here tonight were not on the committee as well. But those of you that were, we did a tour and we tried to hit some of these types of pocket park sites and kind of look at those and specifically talk about those. And I think that elevated the discussion a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's good seeing the visual. You drive by, you know, a little diamond in the middle of the road. It's like nothing you can ever do anything with, or it just, when you see these parks, it's pretty obvious that there's not much in way of usefulness for the city. So
yeah, I think you're going to give a map or something. You have people have a map, so go out there and look at some of them. I mean, you just drive down Lynn Avenue and you see some dirt on the side of the road and the mud pit, and you go, oh, there's a park. You know, so, I mean, it's true, it's right, you know, and you just kind of sit there and think, man, the taxpayers have to pay for that when somebody could maybe add portion of that to their property and maintain it, or, you know, to where it becomes more beautification of the city than, you know, a nice one.
There are a couple of sites, and I don't, because we don't want to negotiate property in a public meeting, and I'm not going to say any of the sites, but over the last several years, I have been, just to kind of make a little bit of a point of what Barney was talking about, I've been contacted on occasion by residents who have one of these properties that maybe adjoins their personal residential property. And they see that as an opportunity to maybe to expand their backyard. They see this city property just sitting there not being used, talking about here too is not necessarily all of these properties aren't going to have value as a sale. In fact, some of them, like these, I think you were just talking about, Patrick, like a triangle, there's a specific one that I'm thinking of that we may be stuck with it.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
if the voters check yes,
Yeah, we will.
and said you may sell this if you wish to do so, or if you're able to do so, or you may dispose of it.
No one's going to buy a
I don't think
median.
anybody's even going to take it.
Right.
Because some of those are just literally just spaces that are going to be a burden for somebody.
I know Starbucks property.
Yeah. To go coffees.
You know, so that's something to think about.
So-
too. Some of these may not have any value to even dispose of as somebody, you know, a donation, or there's no value in selling it. So, you know, that's why I think we kind of have to start going through those and identifying individual items. So maybe to move this conversation along, my thought is that if this is something to continue the conversation, if PrAC wants to continue looking at this and evaluating it, might even suggest that you have a subcommittee, kind of like you did with the dog park thing, where maybe 2 or 3 people that are interested. And I think that Brian, I don't want to speak for him because he's not here, Brian Watt I'm talking about, because there's 2 Brians on the committee now, might be interested in even possibly spearheading this or taking a role in this. And anybody else is interested in sitting down with staff outside of these meetings, because it's going to take some time to go through and kind of just really set the maps out and start kind of circling potential sites that we might want to specifically talk about, and then bringing that back and kind of working through it as a committee, and maybe start really honing in on specific potential discussion sites, and then deciding whether that's worth taking forward or not.
That's the next thing I was going to say is just say it's not every park. It's not like, you know, I didn't want to kind of made it sound like let's get rid of them all. It's just there's certain ones that just are, to me, are a burden, and it's just better off getting rid of those. But not all of them. There are some good ones out there.
That group can work on a definition too. You know, like
Right.
what parameters and guidelines are you using that make it transparent for the public to see? Look, this is a 3x5 strip serving as a median. There's no possible use for it, or you know, just a guideline in which these properties would fall under, so that the public is aware of what guidelines we're using. We're not being subjective and selling off something that maybe the community may value.
I think Marty's got a great idea for us to go out and drive around or ride your bike around or whatever and look at it and take our little maps. The other thing, Scott, you gave me a while back when we started talking about dog park possibilities, an inventory, and it's got sizes and acreage and so forth. And I don't know if everybody has that, or maybe you could
I'd love to have one of
I'll
those.
send that out.
yeah, put it in an email attachment and let everybody print it out. Because, I mean, there's an amazing list of properties here.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I will send that around to everybody.
Okay, great.
That's
Thank
kind
you.
of shocking.
Yeah, we have all of that?
No wonder they're busy.
Like Boyston Reservoir. Where is Boyston Reservoir? But anyway,
We do have a lot of open space.
yeah. Anything else on dog parks? Excuse me, pocket parks. Cripes, I'm sorry. Pocket parks. Okay, so anything on other general business? And we'll move on to PrAC member reports. Marty?
Vegas was nice last week. Checked out a dog park there. So, but yeah, I've pretty much been on vacation or busy for the last month.
Okay.
Nothing.
Patrick?
Were there any dogs that look like Elvis?
Actually,
Elvis costume?
there were actually no dogs at that park.
Well, I was like, what, $1.10 in temperature? It was-
It's only, I
must have
think,
been an indoor park.
108.
108.
That day. Yeah, it wasn't too hot.
No. I saw Denise hard at work out there inspecting the fountains the other day. I had to stop by and say hi at the Carnegie Center. The community is loving it, including, you know, I'm dragging my little boy in the sprinklers too, and so it looks fabulous, and it's a great low in cost, I think, for the city, but serves such a great purpose and looks fantastic. But nothing new for me. Just looking on my house.
just before the meeting tonight, I went to a little Metro open house about the Kenema Bluff area. Metro now owns 280 acres or so in the Kenema Bluff area. It's almost adjacent to Kenema Park, and it is adjacent to that piece of land that we bought, that the city bought with Metro money a year ago?
Yeah,
whatever.
about a year ago.
Anyway, at this point, they've done some real preliminary planning, particularly concerning the inventory of trees that are in the area and existing kind of unofficial trails. They've done some fir tree removal in there to try to get the oak trees to come back or not die off because of the fir trees taking all the sun away from the oak trees. Anyway, if you're interested in that area, particularly if you're interested in trails in that area, they're doing a trail walk this coming Saturday at 9 o'clock. Going to go for a couple of hours, and they're meeting at the end of 5th Avenue and the Cemetery Road, which is just a couple of blocks to the south of Kenema Park, if anyone's interested. And they're going to walk some of the trails. What they're trying to do, there are probably more unofficial trails in there, and I think they want to kind of maybe try to steer the traffic a little bit so that the damage to the natural terrain is minimized, and that animals will come back in a little more if people are, more on the perimeter instead of wandering all over through the site. Anyway, so that's this coming Saturday at 9 o'clock. Done.
When we finished the meeting last time, I was asked to maybe be a piece of what's going on with the research and the development of the RV park. And since then, Scott suggested that we maybe find somebody else that would like to do that with me. I spent some time, I ride a bicycle a lot, and I have been riding through there, and I was surprised that the users are locals. I would have thought. I mean, they're not immediate locals. I think they're coming from around the area, but
they're regional.
Yeah, and the amount of money that is there is quite a bit. These weren't just happy campers. These were nice motorhomes with they could qualify as a primary residence for me especially. And I have been thinking about what would we like to see there. And the basic ones that when I'm talking to people come up, Wi-Fi, some of the things you mentioned, Scott, a restroom, shower facility. I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but that comes up when I'm talking to people. And the idea of yurts. Wonder what it would take to manage yurts or put yurts in over there. I myself find it amazing that people travel to sit under the I-205 bridge, but they're there, and there's money being spent. They're going over to the fishing store, and they're going over to the restaurants, and they're making it happen. So anyway, nothing really substantive coming from that yet, other than just trying to get my hands around what is going on over there and what would people really like to see, and also when we see that plan that we're talking about that they've done already, how much more of that square feet could we really use? Can we use all the way up to where the new boat ramp boot dock is in John Storm Park? There's that whole green area through there that might be cool for yurts or something like that. So that's where we're at, and that's my report.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn.
Couple little bullets from Kathy over at the Pioneer Center that they continue to harvest from the garden using the herbs and vegetables in the meal preparation. They had a class of 29 enrolled in the fall vegetable gardening class last week or earlier this week. And then the trip to the beach, one of the field trips, filled in one day as soon as they opened the registration. They're currently beginning a process to advertise some needed help for the kitchen volunteers. I know from the past, when you deliver a meal, you have cold items and the hot meal is usually fresh dished up by church groups or other charitable groups that sign up. But those cold packs that are often special diet, and they have to be marked that way, we had some veteran volunteers who just did it for years and years, but they became so frail and elderly themselves that they're no longer able to do it. So we need somebody local that can commit to coming in like at 8:30 in the morning and work for an hour, once a week, something like that. So the advertisement thing is going to go out for that. So hopefully that will be met. So that's all I know.
Okay, thank you. Move on to staff member reports. Kenema Neighborhood Park Project update.
Yeah, just to let you know, I'd let you know at the last meeting that we bid award had happened and construction, I think at that point, was just about to kick off, if I'm remembering correctly. At any rate, the project is well underway. If you have a chance to go by there, you can go by and see a work in progress. There's a lot of excavation going on at this point, and I need to watch the progress of that. But it's underway and on time so far. One thing I want to mention about that project, just to remind you, I think I had mentioned this before, is that the playground installation was going to be done as a neighborhood volunteer project. So they'll actually, we have the playground company representative will actually supervise that, but and with some staff help as well. But it will be done as a volunteer project by the Kenema Neighborhood Association. They wanted to find a way to participate in that, and we kind of determined together that that would be the best way to do so. And that will probably take place in probably either late August or early September. Most likely just be a one-day, Saturday or something like that. And these community playground builds are pretty neat. Welcome to come and join the volunteer effort. I'll keep you posted as to when that might be. That's kind of a neat part of that. The next item, I'll just keep kind of rolling through these. The next item, the Carnegie Spray Park renovation. We completed that and it opened on time and under budget or within budget about 2 weeks ago tonight for the concert that took place 2 weeks ago. And it's been, although the weather's been a little sketchy, but finally, it looks like we've got a weather pattern that looks like summer here now. It's been pretty well received, as Patrick just said. It's the neighbors are enjoying it, the community's enjoying it. It's much improved over what was there before, and it really neat. Denise was our staff that was responsible for directing that project and did a great job. And it really turned out nice.
A question for Denise or you. Wondering about skateboarding over those heads. Is there a possibility of damage? Because I have seen a couple of kids skateboarding in there. Is that something that would need to be posted? I don't know if the wheels could break those heads, or are they?
No, they're flush nozzles, so they'll just keep going right over them. The only ones.
So they're a hard enough material that they're not going to.
Yeah, we shouldn't have too many.
They're
trouble.
heavy gauge brass, flush with concrete.
Okay.
And some of them are just slightly recessed to the concrete, so it's just a little bump for them. But
those things are going to last a long time.
We knew that would be the case when we looked at that design prospect. Is one, the age demographic we were looking at, and two, even if we post no skating, no bikes, no scooters, they're going to be there. So we really tried to pick something that was going to stand up to the type of users around the facility.
Okay, great, thank you.
Because they filled it in, made it flush, that's definitely less attractive to skateboarders because they have no place to drop in.
Yeah.
So it's
You sound like a skateboarder. Get your terms down.
Yeah, back a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay.
The next couple of items there, I'll let Denise give you the reports on those.
So the Sportcraft boat ramp project was delayed by 2 weeks due to the high water that we were having and the releases that were happening around us that were causing us to have more water flow. We are closing the ramp tomorrow morning and starting the fencing and putting the turbidity curtain in, which is that protective curtain that we put in so that we don't send anything downriver. So we're underway. We took down a couple of diseased and topless, dying cottonwoods right on that shoreline edge, right where it breaks from the going down to the ramp and the parking lot that's just adjacent to it. Those came down today, and part of our plan for the project is mitigating some more vegetation in there. So we're putting 15 trees and I think 180 bushes or bush type plantings in there that will help stabilize the soil that we put on the bank. So it'll be a drastic change once we're done. So not only just renovating the ramps, but we're doing that bank edge as well. So that should be underway and heavy construction hauling through that to the end of October 31st. We're really hoping to hit that timeline. So as long as we don't have too many more releases, we should be good. Sorry, I gotta punch the button here. So on the recreation side, we had our volunteer recognition last Thursday at the Concerts in the Park. BCT did our grilling behind the scenes and was also the sponsor for the event. There were some other sponsors. I don't have the whole listing, but we had plenty of sponsors for that event. And I just want to put out a huge thank you to our commissioners and the staff that attended that helped serve the food and put everything together so that we could serve our volunteers. And a number of people were there that we recognized. And then a huge thank you to Kathy Weissman. She was the organizer of the entire event, and she just worked herself and her staff to the bone. So huge kudos to our staff that really put that out there and got all our volunteers in. I think we had close to 200 volunteers show up just for the recognition portion. Movies in the park, we have at Wesleyland Park, starting at dusk, August 5th, Back to the Future, August 19th, Tangled. So these are more targeted to family movie nights. We also will continue our...
They're both at Wesleyland.
Both at Wesleyland. Concerts in the Park will continue every Thursday to the last Thursday in August. Concert itself starts at 6:30, runs to 8:30. Food starts serving at 5:30. And if you look on the trail news or on our website, we have a listing of who those bands will be and who's sponsoring the food. The next big thing we're doing is our pool shutdown. It's going to be August 29th, reopening September 19th. It'll be a 3-week shutdown, and we're doing some major renovation pieces in there. So we're taking the old broken acoustical tiles off the walls. We're going to scrape that down, put a new coat of paint on that upper portion of the walls as well as that ceiling in the natatorium. So the ceiling over the pool. That's going to take a little bit of work. We're going to do the showers in the bathrooms are very, very old, and so we're going to take the tile out and we're going to retile the rest or the shower spaces. The community room, we're going to take the kind of warped and deflected flooring out, support that subflooring base a bit so that it's nice and sturdy. We shouldn't have any more deflection in the floor. Put a new flooring surface down. And then we're going to just do throughout the building touch-ups and cleanups. So it's going to look phenomenal when we're done. Brand new spanking areas. So again, our staff is going to be working really, really hard. We don't have a lot of staff, so the staff we do have, they're going to be working themselves to the bone. And I think that's all I have for you guys.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, so we have no August meeting other than the August 15th dog park meeting. If you care to attend, you're certainly welcome. Our next scheduled meeting is Thursday, September 22nd. And if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:40 p.m.
Wow.
Hey, I got the